Hey everybody, Anna Sabramowicz here. It's Sunday, my friends. Today is the day you plan, and basically one of the things that I do on Sunday now is a lot of people have Sunday fun day, right? But for me, Sunday is the day to reflect on the week, figure out how it went. It's actually one of my favorite days now. It used to be kind of an anxiety day. Hi Debbie, thanks for joining me. So Sunday used to be the day where I basically was anxious about the week coming up ahead, right? All the things I needed to do, and I would kind of stress out about it. Now, Sunday for me it's really about a mindset shift, because it's not like the world's going to change in any way for us, right? But what's going to be really cool is if you approach it with a different mindset, then you start seeing things differently, and you can take a lot of the pressure off of yourself, because a lot of it is stuff we come up with in our own heads as far as basically adding stress to our lives. That's unnecessary, right? It's all about the frame that you put on it. So one of the things that I do on Sundays is plan for the next week, but also reflect on what happened in the last week. And we had a really awesome session in my cohort for scenario design. And I thought it was a pretty cool lesson for me. So I thought I'd share it here with you. But also, one of the things that's coming up is we're coming up into week 5 and 6 of creating our, basically drafting our scenarios. And so there's going to be some lessons coming up for that. And I thought I'd share some of the things that we're working on in our sessions with you, so you could pull out some nuggets that you could use in your own learning. All right. So it's kind of funny. So one of the things that we do with during the cohort sessions is we also do walkthroughs. So we take some of the best interactive learning experiences out there, and we deconstruct them. We deconstruct their stories. We deconstruct, what are some of those elements that made them compelling and super immersive. What's really fun is a lot of times I'll talk to people, and I live in this world, right? So I think that everybody's seen all of the things that I've seen, and they've thought about all the things that I've thought about, but it's not true. It's actually super awesome, because a lot of times I'll introduce something and people be like, I've never even seen that before. Where was this? And I'm like, dude, it's been around for so long. And I've been modeling it because it's so awesome and it's such a good example. So it's wonderful. We're able to still use things that are in the world out there that people can access. Because I think that's one of the hardest things as a learning designer, is that there's very few things you actually get to really look at that are top notch, that aren't behind some sort of a firewall, right? So you don't get to play with the best of the best, or if you do, it's because you're privy to some special area, or you paid a whole bunch of money for it. So it's awesome that we can access these, and they're still accessible. And if they're not, then I've definitely captured them so that you can still access them. Because it's good to look at amazing experiences that other people have developed, and then figure out exactly what the systems and models are underneath them as you start to see those patterns, so that you can apply them in your own work. And that's what we do during our sessions. Is I don't want anybody to feel like they have to reinvent the wheel, because that's what I've been doing for the past 10 years. I want somebody to be able to come in and look at, basically my job is to show them the patterns and the frameworks underneath all these great learning experiences. And then what they can do is they can say, okay, I can see that working. I can see that pattern, because I've done the deconstruction for them. And then they can take it into their own work context and basically just apply it. And it's not, when you design an engaging learning experience, it's not that every single one is going to have the same look, feel, or framework underneath it. Because as we know, different things fit different contexts, or it's kind of like, you're not going to use a hammer for every single situation. Sometimes you're going to use a screwdriver or whatever. So what I basically want to have people walk away with is this really solid tool. And when it fits and it's going to augment that learning, then you can just pull it off the shelf or pull it out of your tool belt if you want to get all handyman-like, and then use it and be very confident in using it because you know it fits and it works and you've basically got it down. So that's what I want people to come away with during those sessions. So that's why we look at also examples so that people can, sometimes you look at something like, let's say, Broken Coworker or Haji Kamal or some other interactive experience episode, like something like Our World War that's designed by the BBC. And you'll look at it and it's so, like, those guys probably spent like millions of dollars putting together these movies, and then they were able to actually use that to create these interactive learning episodes, right? And we look at that at our, like, at the very end of that process, and it can become super kind of intimidating because you're looking at this thing and it's so it's so big and overproduced, right? It's great for them, but you don't have, like, a lot of the people that I work with are like a single person department. I don't know if that's you, but but you're basically like doing all the scoping, all the needs analysis, everything, and at the end you're also the person who's like the nuts and bolts pixel pushing person who puts it all together and launches it and probably packages it and puts it into the SCORM packaging to launch in an LMS. So like soup to nuts, right? And so when you look at something finished like that, it's hard to get started because you're super overwhelmed with where do I even begin, and is this something that I can even produce on my own? And that's kind of how I felt when I was first years ago. I was still working as an instructional designer, and I'm still working as an instructional designer. That's not that I'm not working, but I was working for somebody else, not for myself as I am now. And the problem with that was that I was putting a lot of things together that were just like, I didn't even want to look at them. And so I was thinking, if I found them boring and horrible, then the person who would be looking at them because they had to as a part of their learning would also feel the same. And I didn't know how to fix that. And I think it was a lot of that, that I didn't have the framework to actually be able to produce something consistently. So what I felt I had to do was, every single time I was faced with a piece of content that I was told was extremely important, was to somehow make it interactive in some way, like, or present it in some interesting way. And it came down to every single slide, how can we make this cool and contextual with images and maybe some cool activities? And that worked for like only so long. And then after a little while, you realize that it just gets old. And then in fact, what happens is you feel like you have to keep on adding something novel every time to have people engage with your information, which is really freaking draining because there's no way you can be that creative all the time, right? So then you're producing things, you're drained, and also you feel kind of, you actually feel just terrible because every single time you produce something, you're just like, ugh, like it demotivates you and in some ways demoralizes you because you're like, is this all there is? How come I can't create something profoundly engaging without having to basically be exhausted and mentally dead at the end of the day because I've tried to come up with innovative ways, right? And I felt like this process for designing learning also, and that's one of the things I try to kind of instill in my students who are already coming in pretty jazzed, like they're already excited about creating things that are really engaging for them. Oh, you might hear some geese. That's a giant geese flying over my house right now. Whew, it's intimidating. Anyways, so one of the things that we're trying to instill is this excitement and the fact that this work doesn't have to be painful. Like, it actually should be very interesting and engaging, and in fact it should be for you as the developer, because if you are interested and engaged in it, guess what, that'll also transpire into the things that you're putting into that work, which is super cool. And that's one of the things I want people to walk away with, is that there's this taking away of the pressure because you got a framework and you can actually start being creative within those constraints because you know exactly where the domain you're working within, right? Which is, I got to tell you, takes so much pressure off you to be the innovator, because there's frameworks and systems in place where you can just, okay, I know this, I got this. Now let's have some fun. And you can actually do that because it's not, you don't start everything from like zero. So, so then what happened is I was doing this terrible work, and it wasn't that it was terrible, it was just, it was terrible. And then this, it was really cool. One of the Articulate Storyline just launched. They were having a beta, and they said, do you want to submit something for this contest? And I had never done that before. And also I felt like I was really, who am I? I was like, who am I to create something out there for people to see as an example? Like, who am I to do that? And it was very nerve-wracking, because I really felt like I was going to make a laughing stock of myself a little bit. But my goal there was, for the first time, I wanted to create something where I didn't have somebody else telling me how it should look, how it should sound, what the content I should focus on. I really wanted to make it something that I would enjoy personally, that I, as a learner, would get value from it. And that's what Broken Coworker was, which is basically a module I created for my peers, because one of the things that, and I wanted to show you this, because this is, as you can see, the wall behind me is completely bare, because I just moved, and it's amazing because now I have windows. Before I was kind of in a dark space, so this is weird to me. But I have this thing that I'm going to put up. I got this one. I got a whole bunch of posters. So this, I don't know if you can, things are showing up backwards. I don't know if you can actually see what this says, because I think I have the mirror image off or something. But what it's supposed to say is, work hard, stay humble. And it's funny because this is totally like a values thing, right? People see that and they're like, yeah, that's me. Work hard, stay humble, right? And it's kind of funny, because I've interviewed tons of instructional designers and people who work in the learning and development industry. And on my YouTube channel, I have a ton of those interviews, and more are coming up. But one of the things that comes up is that humbleness piece, right? And I remember thinking, reflecting on it now when I bought that poster, is that I used to think that humbleness also meant being, not that I meant it very, I didn't mean it very explicitly, but I did believe that it had to do with being a doormat a little bit, like confidence-wise, right? So when I had the interactions with subject matter experts, I always felt like I was coming in with that the humbleness also meant that I was the person who wasn't taking charge as well. And that bit me in the butt a lot of times, because I gave so much agency to the expert. It's almost like I also gave them agency in the fact that they could design good learning, which is not true. They're expert in their thing, right? And so I believe I sacrificed a lot of good experiences because I took the humbleness to the wrong level. The humbleness is about, like now I've redefined what humbleness means. And also I grew through talking to all these people who had been in the business for so long, that humbleness is really always walking into every conversation, anticipating that that person is going to teach you something you don't know, right? That there's you always have something to learn, but there's always something that you bring to the conversation too, which is, if you've lived in this world of learning and experience design, that it is also a expertise in learning, which should not be omitted in any way, or that you shouldn't downplay that, because as far as I'm concerned, the people that I talk to, even in our sessions, especially in our sessions, actually, our cohort sessions, have been doing this and love what they do, and they have the utmost learning mindset, which is amazing. Although sometimes I think we're doing a lot of unlearning as well, because to be honest with you, learning experience, interactive episode design is actually quite new for a lot of people. And also the software is different. In what I mean by that is that we're no longer taking, a lot of us have taken that old medium of PowerPoints and the static web pages and now dressed them up into an interactive something, right? Online learning. But really, an interactive episode is all about giving agency to the person who's working through it, to make them feel like they are immersed in their own experience. So when we launched Broken Coworker and that really hit, to be honest, I thought, well, first, who am I to actually launch something like this? To launch something that I felt was, in my idea, was fun and also would be cool for people to experience. But I kind of, let's just say that when we sent in the file, I really felt like I was going to throw up because I thought it was a little too off the wall and provocative, and that I would be kind of a laughingstock for creating something like that. I know that sounds silly, but with like after you see like the feedback that I've received, the amazing positive flow of just great experiences that people have had, and they've actually emailed me and shared them with me, and I'll still talk to people today and they're like, by the way, that piece just gave me that aha moment. What's funny for me is that I when I launched that, obviously, like, super scared, felt like I was going to be laughed at for putting something out like that. And for a very long time, even after it was a great success, I didn't see it like that. I felt like that was a fluke. And then the thing was that it certainly opened up opportunities for me to continue getting projects that were versions of that, like that integrated story, that were heavy on decision making. But I didn't really see that pattern for a very long time. And in fact, I kept on struggling with projects where I tried to be... Hi, Sherzad. I kept on trying to do projects that were basically trying to appease the customer, because a lot of times what people did is they would come in, they would see something like, let's say, Broken Coworker, but what happened is they were afraid of all the things that needed to be done to create a piece like that for themselves, to create a learning episode, interactive learning episode for themselves. And because I still didn't have the confidence to say to people, hey, I actually know what I'm doing, and I've created something that I know will engage people, because I didn't have the confidence and I didn't offer that solid framework up front, a lot of times what happened is the doubts and the inexperience of the other people who were not experts in learning would come through, and they would, in effect, taint the project. They would be like, can we add more content? Can we add more this? Can we lower it on this? There's too many decisions, or we're not comfortable with stories. And what happens is, if you don't have that upfront confidence that you have a framework that actually works, and that what you're doing with that expert is you're actually augmenting their experience. They're not coming in to augment the learning experience. The learning experience is already a set framework and a decision system. So you already got that. You own that. And what they're doing is they're coming in and you're making their experience accessible to somebody who wants to learn and be where they are. And so one of the things that I said about, really becoming an expert and gaining personal confidence that I could add value to those interactions with the experts is that I was coming in with a framework and a system that I had honed, and this was my world, and they were experts coming in from their world, and we were combining those two things to create something awesome. We were no longer this expert's coming in and I'm just going to be like, okay, whatever you want, I'll do because you're the expert. No, I'm an expert in learning. You're an expert in your thing. And we're going to mesh it, and our ideas are going to intermingle, and we're going to create something magical. So that confidence for me took a long time to develop. And also the other thing that was hard was the fact that I had created something that people really loved and it resonated with them. And then I saw these snippets of things along the way. And I'm talking about years here, okay? This wasn't like I got it and then life was easy after that. It was like, you create something and you're like, it's successful, but it must have been a fluke. It couldn't have been for a reason, right? You're like, I just got lucky. And then all of a sudden you see something else that resonates with you, and then there's a pattern underneath and you think, okay. And I had I had so many moments like that where, something, it's like there's like a hammer and it's hitting you on the head and you're like, oh yeah, but it takes so long for you to get, one, that you can do this, two, that there's a pattern, three, that you have the confidence to actually present it to people and say, it works. And one of the ways that I found it really helped me is to reflect on my own experiences from outside of the industry. Because one of the things I think happens is that we in the learning and development industry, it's like an echo chamber of ideas. And sometimes it's influenced by things that are not really real or that are not based in real practice. They're based on data research. And as you probably know, a ton of the research in academia is on university students who are forced to do those studies because it's a part of their psychology credit. I know because I used to participate in them. So university students are not indicative of adults working in the workplace. It's a different reality. And so, like I said, the place where I really found a lot more clarity about what engages people and what really works, and a system to do this stuff consistently, is outside of our industry, in the gaming industry, in the Hollywood industry, entertainment, and also education that is not mainstream, like Khan Academy, Duolingo, Primer by Google. Those are all things built for adults. Some of them are for adults. I think Khan Academy actually should be used by adults because it's solid. And they're built on user data and gamification and analytics. So what happens is all those things, like from mass numbers, are combined, and then you start to see patterns and trends that work. And because those people are trying to produce things at a huge scale, they're trying to also find those patterns that work as well. And that's what I wanted for my work. I wanted to find things that are repeatable and that you can reuse, and that I don't have to reinvent things from scratch, but I can still be creative within a constraint, because that's when you are the most creative, is when you have the constraints, right? So I do that, and years over years of this, like, hey, that's working, then it actually ends up, you finally end up realizing that there are patterns and systems, and you stop being ashamed of directing people in that way, because it is actually the right thing to do. A lot of people talk to me about, when you talk to a subject matter expert, yeah, you are humble, but also they're the client, so you have to be very flexible for their needs because they're the client. And I'm like, no, they're not your client. The business is your client, and both of you are working for the business, and the business is also working for to maintain integrity. You have to make sure that the people who are working in that business, those are your clients. So it's not it's subject matter expert, and they're not your client. The client is the people who are working for the business, trying to get better and more efficient and awesomer at what they do so the business can do better. So now that you shift that perspective, those are the things I try to really reinforce during my workshop sessions, because a lot of us come in with ideas from either school or legacy thinking or peer groups that are very focused on, like I said, our echo chamber, right, of things. So we need to make sure that we're looking at outside to bring those ideas in. And also the other thing is that a lot of us are stuck because we think that we have to invent everything from scratch. Well, there's big industries out there that have been leveraging data and stories and interaction design to create amazing things. We don't have to build everything from scratch. In fact, you now have the tools. If you have a framework, you can produce these things very efficiently, and they're amazing. Like it's crazy to me. Like people get all messed up with, oh, I can't produce this, and I'm like, what you're producing now is like almost Hollywood quality to what it was like even 5 years ago, right? So just embrace it. You still need to have some frameworks in place though, because I think that the software can be overwhelming. So I actually wrote down 4 things that you need to keep in mind when you are designing your pieces, your interactive learning episodes, to make sure that you don't get distracted by the power of the software and the infiniteness of that building platform. Because I don't know if any of you have played with what kind of software you've played with. I've played with Branch Track, Captivate, Storyline, Inkle Writer. There's so many. There are so many out there, and each one is special in its own way. Like Wrapped Media is meant for video interactions, right? And tons of stuff. But the thing with that is that there's no constraints in that software. You can go infinitely. You can build infinitely. And what happens is when you start with that, you quickly lose sense of the most important pieces that make your interactive learning episode the best. And here's what they are. And I didn't come up with this list. This is something I've compiled with years of struggle and pain and feeling nauseous at times, and but in the end pushing through to create something where I felt like somebody else would really enjoy it, find immersive, and almost have this like a little bit of an aha experience. All right, so 4 things. And this is like, I have no idea if this is showing up, if this is readable, because last time I did this it was backwards. So tell me, okay? So, and if not, I'll read them to you anyways. Okay, so the first one is story. Do not skimp on this. If your story, the story of when somebody begins their journey with you, to the transformation that they get to by the time they're done, the things that they've achieved as a result, you got that tight, you can have sticky notes and stick people. It's that powerful. So you don't need all the other stuff to make it happen. Now, the other one is, so after you've got the story solid, decisions and agency. So keep it simple. So you do want to engage somebody by helping them make decisions as often as possible, but those decisions have to help them feel like they mean something. You can't have decisions like Cheerios or soup. The decisions have to be very, they have to mean something, like the next result, or it has to, like in the real world, yes, there are tons of meaningless decisions, but in a story setting, when you're making decisions with, and Shirzad, you're asking about e-learning, those decisions have to mean something to that user, and they have to get a lesson from it, because every single decision, in fact, drives a consequence, right? So the consequence has to be meaningful as well. It has to be a lesson for that person. So you want to make sure that the decisions that they're making are actually meaningful and not just for fun, because then they'll lose impact. And when I say keep it simple, I mean you don't have to add branches. You can actually have decisions that give you consequences, and then they still continue on the same story, but they've learned a little bit in that nugget, which we call a pearl in the workshop. So the other thing is consider the medium. If we deconstruct examples during the workshop that I run, and you'll notice that depending on which medium you're actually designing your e-learning in, your interactive learning experience, you might slow the pace down a bit. Let's say if you're doing video, you might add like a spacer for people to be able to think. Because the thing is, especially with interactive media, if you're asked to make a decision, you don't always get the chance to reread what somebody said. So one of the things that, hey, glad to hear, Debbie. Yeah, it's actually interesting if you have a solid story and really good decision points, how little branching you actually need to do, and people don't even notice. I think one of the challenges is that we see the back end, we see what the script is supposed to be like, and so we overthink that experience. Well, for somebody going through it, they're in it. They're not thinking about, oh, did I get 2 options or 3, or how, they just want to have power in there and agency. So that's what they love, right? So we see behind the curtain, and we sometimes overcomplicate things for ourselves instead of really thinking about the end user. So one of the things is video, right? You might slow things down or add an extra spacer where people have a chance to really think about, because they have to think to make that decision. And one of the decisions we made in Broken Coworker, which you should check out if you haven't yet, because it's awesome, and I've been told that like probably over 300 times, is that we had video sequences which were very punchy, but we knew that sometimes people would miss the dialogue or kind of get lost in the moment. So we, after the video sequence stopped, we added the text in comic book style so they could read it and think about it. And in some sequences, some places that we deconstructed, the video slowed down just so somebody is able to even replay it or see it. So if you have video, you might make that sequence slower. If you have text, it doesn't matter because people can go back and reread, but you really have to think about your medium. How are people making decisions? And is the user experience, as far as how they make those decisions, is it only 2 options at a time or more? You have to think about all those things and pick something very consistent, so that the person is no longer thinking about, by the decision 4, they're no longer thinking about where the heck are the buttons going to be, because that takes you totally out of the story. What they want to be thinking, they want to say, I know it's going to be 2 buttons, yes or no, or this one, and all they're immersed in is what's going to happen next when I make that call, right? So that's the fun stuff. So consider your medium, and then consider your learner, right? And this really is about, and we do this by just really picking apart certain examples. So in some places you'll see a motivation meter, right? I don't know if you guys have seen that before, but sometimes you'll have like somebody's playing something, and you have a little meter at the bottom saying motivation up or expertise up. And you have to be very careful about why you use those mechanics. What's going to motivate people? You don't do that intuitively. Sometimes you can do it intuitively, but a lot of times it's just testing. And also, it is about your goals. Like, what's the theme, right? Is the theme for you to increase motivation? And is the theme for you to build confidence? How are you going to include these little pieces in the end to either help somebody make better decisions or not? So that's a call you have to make based on your target audience. So in some places we've seen where scoring and giving somebody a score at the very end is a big deal because they get motivated by that, or you want to really reinforce somebody getting a perfect score. So maybe you want to reinforce that they go through your interaction more than once, so they build on that. Or if it doesn't matter and you really want them to focus on the decision making, not even the user interface very much, you might mute it, like Haji Kamal muted to browns. There's no colors there, it's just beiges and browns, so that instead of focusing on the novelty of the illustrated characters, they're just focusing on the decisions in the story. So those are all the things you have to really consider. So let me just recap. Story, decisions. Story comes first. Decisions, where you're going to place them, are they meaningful? Considering what medium you're going to build this in. This comes after you've decided all these things, right? So, because in the beginning you might say, I'm going to do my story all in with text-based and see that that's all I have time and money for. And then you might add your to your scenario that consider the learner. You've considered them already, but a lot of times is, how much jazz or distraction you're going to add based on who they are, where they are, what they're trying to accomplish, all those other things. Yeah. So now, if you are into this and you want to learn more about what we do, hi Pablo, thanks for joining. We're starting our next cohort on May 21st. 21st is kind of, it's a tentative date, I have a wedding, so I might be partying for like a week longer. Who knows? Not my own. So we're starting on May 21st, and what's really cool is what's come out of this is it really is a coaching 8-week me coach along with you program where we really get into the heart of what you want to design. A lot of the people that have joined the cohort so far that are running through are people who are creating things for themselves. They want to have a portfolio piece because within their context of their own work right now, they're not really able to have the flexibility that I had when we had this launch. So they're creating pieces that they want to own, share, and feature. And then the other scope of it is that there's people who are working on projects. They've sold their organization on something more engaging, like they're trying to push it to the next level, but they want to do it right the first time. So they don't want to have basically build everything, like I said, 10 years ago from scratch on their own and hopefully figure it out because they're under timelines. They just want to do it right the first time and introduce this kind of interactive learning experience and introduce it to their organization the right way, and then have a system to keep on doing that. Because one of the things that is really key is that this isn't a one-off for you. This is something that you get to get good at and hone, and then you continue doing that and refining it in your own context, but you have this, and it's not a starting from carte blanche every time going, what do I do now, right? You're confident in this framework system, and when it fits, you pull it off the shelf and use it confidently with your subject matter expert guiding them, not the other way around. Because, like I said, your subject matter experts are there to collude with your systems because you're the learning expert. And really what I want to do is build you up as that and make sure that you're confident so that when you go out there into the world, you are just focusing on executing the best experience instead of drama with somebody who has gone to school and they think they know how to design learning, right? You're coming in with this system and framework and you know how it works. And you're creating something awesome with them, not as the result of them telling you what to do. So that's come up before, and it's kind of an interesting dynamic. I've been there myself, like I said, where I thought humbleness was about being the doormat, but really humbleness is about being very open-minded, and also humbleness is about making sure that when you're designing learning for a novice, if you've been in the business for a while, sometimes you can start to or stop asking the kinds of questions that a novice would. So you come in there and you're like, yeah, I already know this topic, blah, 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 right? But if you keep that humbleness mindset and you combine it with the scripts that I have for interviewing your subject matter expert, you can actually get a great story and the context for the novice and bypass a little bit of that curse of knowledge that you already have being in that company and being in that environment. So it's a really cool experience, I think. And one of the other things that's really working well, and I didn't anticipate it working so well, is the fact that when you're in a group of people who are all working on the same kind of they're working in different contexts, but they are working on different projects, but they have different skill sets that they're coming in with. Some people are super software savvy and they're just wanting to like augment their story and design from that very beginning. And some people are coming in with the instructional design savvy, but they're as far as the mechanics of learning, that's new to them, and they've, like, maybe they're coming in from the training world, and now they're actually, some of them are, and now they're trying to build an interactive self-paced experience online, coming in from a basically face-to-face training, right? So they're trying to find a way to take the experiences that they've already had in the classroom and turn them into something meaningful online that doesn't really lose that much impact. In fact, I can think they're actually more impactful when you go through them by yourself in an immersive environment, to be honest with you. But shh, don't tell anybody that. So, yes. So what's really cool is the fact that these people will come in with different questions, different struggles, or sometimes a lot of them have like the same struggles, but people are afraid to ask those questions. So we get a really great dynamic in those sessions of people just really sharing and then asking, and then we troubleshoot how they can work through that. So it's almost like I'm the coach, but everybody else is also really learning from each other. And I think that's one of the best ways is to work through the consistent challenges together. Anyways, so if you want to get in on our next cohort and work with us on a project, I'll put a link underneath the video, and you'll be able to book a strategy session with me. It's free, and we basically discover what your goals are and where you're at, because there's a skill set that you need to develop to be able to launch really good learning experiences. And a lot of us, like I said, don't have this skill set because it's not what the industry recommends right now, because they're not there yet. So if this is something you want to start implementing and want a framework, want a system, want to take it to the next level, join us. But first you need to talk to me so I can figure out if you'll be a good fit, because some people are not a good fit, and I'll tell you straight up. No hard feelings. Sometimes it's just the expectations are not the same, and we have some expectations as far as when you're joining, what your goals are going to be, and the time you're going to join us for, so that we can all work together. Question. Let me see this. What do you say blended learning? Because from face-to-face interaction to online learning is one way to learn into two ways. Yes. So Shirzad, a great question. Blended learning is fantastic, and I actually think that you really should heavily leverage the idea that you can create an interactive learning episode, e-learning, for somebody to really have a personal experience and get personal aha moments and transformation. And then once that person has had that experience and reflected on the consequences and been through that, then you can actually bring them together and talk about that. But now everybody has had the same experience. When you bring people together into a learning context, and then let's say a live-to-live, face-to-face facilitated group, you really don't know necessarily if all those people have had the same baseline for experiences, learning, aha moments. You don't know that. I mean, they can tell you, but you don't know that. So by creating a really good experience up front that relates to your topic for them to experience on their own, not only do you make sure that everybody's coming in with the same context, but also for those who have not had that experience before, now they have had some experience in that, and also everybody's thought and experienced almost the same thing, had the same kind of ahas, and have an opinion on the same piece. So that's how some of those learning experiences have been used as conversation starters for live sessions. And I think that is a very good way to use that medium. And then you can, at the end, after your session, go back to the experience again and see if people make different choices or if they have a different perspective now. And those are things, what's wonderful, you can measure those things, right? Before and after. So I hope that answered your question. So basically this is the end of my session. I gotta go, but I hope you have a fabulous rest of your weekend wherever you are in the world, and I will probably talk to you next time. Take care, my friends. I'll put the link underneath the video. for you to book that session with me, because I would love to talk to you and have you join our next cohort. Okay, take care. And thanks, Rosette, for your questions. I really appreciate them. All right, take care. Bye.